Well, if you talk mining to anybody, or if you talk geopolitics, it's all about rare earths. We're going to find out today what rare earths are, why they are such a geopolitical hot potato. And we have the richest rare earth deposit, allegedly, presumably. We'll find out more about that in a moment here in South Africa. But it hasn't been brought to account. And we'll find out from the man who's going to do that after years of struggle. His name's Graham Soden, and the company's name is Steenkampskraal. Graham, before we start with Steenkampskraal, this has been a journey for you, a journey and a half, but I'm trying to understand a little bit about the resilience, what built you into the way that you are. And maybe you can go back into your memory banks and tell me, what was the first big failure that you remember having, either in business or in life, that kind of taught you to say, when you get knocked down, you got to get up again?
Morning, Alec. Yeah, I've got quite a story that I can tell. It started when I was studying to be through the Anglo course on a student mine official route. I got the last year after finishing, I did not go immediately to complete mine manager certificate. So it was, in a sense, was a wasted effort because you went through the whole process of getting to your diplomas and degrees, etc., and they're not using it for the purpose. And I broke away from the mining sector for a short period of time and came to the realization that this is actually in my blood. So that's where I came back and did everything that I needed to do to finish off the course and get the certificate and then move on. And I've been in mining ever since.
What caused you to make that strange decision with hindsight?
I think it was more personal. Resistance against parents wanting to take you in a direction and you don't want to go there. And then ultimately making that decision where you get to a point where you say, you know what, they were actually correct. Let's go back to what they suggested.
Hmm. Yeah, I suppose it's funny, as we get older, our parents get smarter somehow. It's a phenomenon of life, isn't it?
Now you got to become just as smart as them now. Otherwise,
What did your parents teach you about work and money that you've taken into your life today?
very quite a bit. My dad came out of the mining sector, and he was high up the ranks in Anglo. So he taught me a lot of perseverance and going the full mile. Um, I tend to almost take a personal um, involvement in a project when I get involved in a project. I like to see it through to fruition. I don't give up easily, and I think that's what's stood me in good stead now for this project, for instance, because my belief in this project is so intense that I'm sticking to it as far as possible, taking it up where we need to take it.
How did you find out about it, about Steenkampskraal? When did it really come onto your radar?
Um, I knew nothing about rare earths and about even the radioactive side of rare earths. Until about 3.5 years ago, I was asked to do a technical due diligence for funder on Steenkampskraal. We did the due diligence. We're very, very surprised as what we found. In my background, I come from the SRK stable as well. So I've been fortunate in going through the formal sector. I owned my own mine for a while, and then I was in the consulting space. So I had a clear vision of the way I thought the project should be taken, and that's where I was brought in to have a look at this project itself. I came through, went to site, and everything was compliant. After 25 years of non-operation, all the documentation, all the licensing, everything was in place. And it was normally you go into a project that's that old and you blow holes in it with a G6 cannon. When we got on the aircraft on the way back, we actually realized we couldn't shoot any holes bigger than a pea shooter through the project. So from that perspective, I got interested, and then I was invited to join the company, and I've been with the project for just on 3 years.
SRK. I know Andy Robertson. He was, in fact, a business partner of mine, the R in the SRK. Tell us a bit more about that business.
When I was at SRK, I was first of all, they did the due diligence on the feasibility study on the project that I was part of selling in the past, which we owned. And then I joined SRK to roll out what we learned from that project. And eventually, when Andy Clay left to the UK, I took over his role as a manager of that division for the period after he left.
And it's a massive multinational now. It's kind of the gold medal in auditing. If you want to audit something in the mining sector and you've got SRK's name on it, well, that's a big thumbs up.
It's
So,
a slam dunk then, yeah.
so you come from royalty in the mining sector, if you like, when you're investigating these things, and then Steenkampskraal's. It sounds to me like it is a high risk venture, or certainly was 3.5 years ago when you jumped ship or you decided to join them. What 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 was the final thing that actually pulled you in?
I've got a very technical brain, a very analytical brain, and I liked what I'd seen. And um, effectively, I was already heading for retirement, and I needed something to really trigger my brain. And this triggered it to a very, very high degree because it was something completely new, very complex, very detailed, very small, but very complex. And that fitted right into my way of thinking and my way of doing things. So that's what hooked me. What did hook me at that stage as well was the hype that I started to pick up from um, the the now unfortunately deceased chairman um, of the company, and he he triggered my appetite for getting into this project, which because it was so different and so complex. I then decided to stay and carry on with the project.
Take us back to its history. Yeah, where did it all start? Somebody found these rare earths or these minerals there, and when was that, and how did it bring us up to today?
It actually started, there's a lot of speculation about Steenkampskraal, but it started way back when the Khoisan were roaming around in that area. They found this rock that if they hit the rock together, it sparked.
Which area?
And that in the Knapsvlakte or in the Namaqualand area. So where the mine is currently, they found this specific rock. And that's where some history says that's what happened. Anglo then did surveys when they did their surveys in the 50s, and they picked up on a magnetic anomaly in the area. And when they went down to have a look, they picked up that it was highly radioactive. And they then, cutting a long story short, they mined the project to between 1952 and 1963, where they generated a monazite concentrate which contained the thorium, and they sold that concentrate to British Nuclear Fuels in the UK, where they were looking at alternatives to uranium for whatever purpose they wanted it for. That didn't work for 10 years. Just after 10 years, they realized, but it's not going to work, and they literally closed the mine down overnight. When you go underground, there's still railway tracks and coker plains that were left by Anglo. The ore body that they mined is the current position is that they mined about 10% of the known ore body, and it's highly accessible. So, from that perspective, um, it's a plus for us, but it's going beyond what I want to discuss. But when there was that issue in 2010, when the Chinese and the Japanese had headbutting around the island in the South China Sea, the price of rare earths skyrocketed. And a company called Great Western then saw an opportunity to start the mine up and list it on the Toronto Stock Exchange, which they did. and they threw millions of dollars at the project. They refurbished, um, put in infrastructure, cleaned up the mess that had been left behind from the dormant operation. And then things started to stabilize in 2013, 2014 between China and Japan, and the price came back down. And the rest is history, actually, where they filed for bankruptcy because there was no more cash coming in. So the the mine was then bought out of liquidation, and it's where it is now is thanks to the work that was done by Great Western on the project. A lot of infrastructure is in place. The decline shaft is partially equipped. Um, there's almost a 2-year supply of run-of-mine material on a stockpile on surface. Not the best grade, but still higher than anywhere else in the world. But we can the critical path is the processing plant and not the mining operations, which is a switch around of the normal process. And the project can go into cash flow positive within a year of startup, um, where normal operations, sinking a shaft, equipping it, doing your development ends, and opening up the stopes would take you upwards of 5 years to get it into cash flow positive.
So why is there such a difference now in the scenario from 2013?
Rare earths are obviously the flavor of the month or the year, and hopefully the next decade. Um, and the mine itself lends itself to exceptionally high grade, easily extractable ore, which makes it a low cost project. It's a typical Pilgrim's Rest type of gold reef deposit, steep dipping, varying dips, varying thicknesses, um, and it's very competent. The geotechnical strength of the host rock is exceptional, which makes the mine a very, very low cost producer. And because of the high grade, it makes it a low producer of concentrate and mixed earth carbonate, etc., at the end of it. What's also changed is the market for thorium has escalated. We're in a discussion with off-takers for the radium 228 off of the thorium that we harvest at the mine. So where thorium initially would have been a waste stream, it's now become a very strong financial income stream.
So just you said right at the beginning that this is radioactive stuff. So clearly you need to mine it differently. And then just explain to us what is in there. What you've mentioned thorium and what is thorium used for. You've also mentioned the radium 228. What's that used for? Just in real layman's terms, without getting too technical.
Would you like me to, if I just give you a breakdown of the elements that we've got? The mine has got 15 of the 17 rare earth elements. Um, Not all of them are high value. Cerium and lanthanum, for instance, is not a high value. But we've got our, just our neodymium and praseodymium content is over 20% contained. Our neodymium is 18%, which is higher than any other project's total rare earth content. We've got dysprosium and terbium, which is over 1%, so it's extractable. And if you look at so putting the rare earths into perspective, we've got most of the rare earths that are available on the planet we can extract reasonably cheaply compared to others. Secondly, the thorium is used for alternative fuel to uranium because it's so stable. You cannot fiddle with it and change it into plutonium or anything like. You cannot weaponize thorium. So we are in discussions with companies in Copenhagen and now in the US and Norway to produce thorium feedstock into atomic power stations replacing uranium. So that's in a test process that we're discussing. Radium 228 is a very, very interesting route. It's a daughter product of the thorium decay chain. It is used for targeted alpha therapy for cancer treatment. And The radium is extracted as a byproduct from the thorium as it decays over the life of thorium. Now, thorium's got a lifespan of half shelf life of 14.4 billion years. So effectively, for that period of time, while it's decaying, you can extract the thorium. That's in layman's terms. But it's a very complex process to extract the radium. But we've got because of the high grade of thorium, we've got the highest grade of radium 228 in the world as well. And that is now a very strong potential, or not potential, it's an income stream that we already that's in our system.
Robertson, a small town in the middle of nowhere where a wine farmer claims to have sold a Volkswagen up to We Buy Cars. A farmer. What car did you really sell them?
A VW.
Right here in Robertson.
Small town, but we know about We Buy Cars.
Yeah, but what's a farmer doing with a VW up?
It was just a runaround.
Cool cover story. And I see you traded it in for this, like a double cab Renault. Were they all out of ranges?
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
So for lay people, this is almost like a gold mine. Of course, it's not gold, but it's got something there that's suddenly become valuable. Rare earths are now in the news and they are incredibly valuable. Why is that the case? Why are rare earths getting the headlines?
Rare earths, as everybody knows, is not very rare. The planet's covered with. If you walk outside, you're getting background radiation from some of the elements that are naturally occurring there. The big issue there is to extract them. How can you pull this out of the ore body? And that is now being fine-tuned. It's been fine-tuned by the Chinese for decades. They were wide awake with this. And the West is catching up. But if you look at what was happening is the West was buying all of their finished products from China. Because they've actually specialized in the processing and manufacturing of the products from the rare earths. But you're looking at elements that are used in every single type of electronic device today. The four magnetics, neodymium, praseodymium, dysprosium, and terbium, are used in permanent magnets for things like electric vehicles and wind turbines for energy and things like that. But then the other ones are used for defense, where they're used in screens, in radar equipment. Even the the nozzles that feed fuel into a rocket system or jet engine is a rare earth product. But so where it was just one or two elements in the past, it's now become the whole basket, as we call it.
Okay, and the Chinese have got a lockhold on this, and hence the concerns by President Trump and his pals.
Yeah, they have woken up. We are targeting specifically marketing to the West, but we are also we've got a offtake agreement with a company in China which will take a portion of our concentrate. That was a deal that was done some time ago, and we're not going to withdraw from that.
This is really interesting because only in the last few days, President Trump was in China, where he desperately wanted them to open their grip on rare earths and allow them to be exported to the US. That was almost their trump card, whereas his trump card was with semiconductors, which he then would allow into China as well. So these are really important products. And here we are in South Africa, and you, Graham Soden, is sitting as the CEO of the company that has got this incredibly rich deposit, the way that you've told us about it. Why aren't people flocking over themselves to extract it and to support you to get this mine going?
Okay, the first thing is we find it also very strange that we haven't been overrun by the Americans. We have had discussions with entities there. We have been confused by the lack of response from them, and we think it's geopolitical because of the South African entity that's not quite Trump's biggest friend. And then secondly, the project is very small in comparison to other projects. people don't realize and don't know and don't take note of the fact that we've actually got a potential of expanding this project by another 30 years, meaning, and that's generated from a ore body that we know is there from geomagnetic surveys that were done in the past. They just have not been explored to a level where we can report them as a reserve and include that in our mining plan. So we've declared the mining plan on our mineable proven reserve at this point. Our strategy is then on the contiguous resource that we know is there, we will do an expansion program over the next 10 years, if you like, because currently we've got a 15 to 16-year life of mine on the known reserve. But then we've got a resource that takes it to 25 years, and then we've got this resource that can add another 30 years to the project. So we think that those are the two main causes. Any history from about Steenkampskraal, we are very selective on who we're talking to because we're making sure that everybody gets the same message. There's such a potential in this project that we're getting every dog on his neighbor wanting to come and get involved in this project. So we've tightened the ranks down, and we're very, very selective in who we talk to.
So who are you talking to?
I think some of it's mostly under confidentiality, so I can't talk too much about it. But there are companies in France. There's companies in Norway, Canada that we're talking to, and then we're fully funded in a sense on phase one from the IDC. So we got IDC funding, which triggered the whole concentrate plant. We've self-funded on what we call a lab scale plant. It's not a typical laboratory where we're testing we're testing a principle. We found a new gravity separation system which we are testing out, and it's working very well so far. We'll still see what the results are when we get the grades back, but it's looking promising. That's self-funded. The IDC's funded phase one. Phase two, we've got an agreement, conditional agreement with companies in Norway, where we're 2/3 funded, and we are in the process of getting or looking at finalizing a transaction from either a South African financial institution for the 1/3 of the final balance on the phase two plant. And there are two other companies we're under confidentiality with that we are looking at for that funding as well, and potentially take it up beyond just the cracking plant.
Okay, so it's a good story. You have got this old mine that has been there for a long time. It's the conditions are now right. People are wanting to help you. The IDC here in South Africa is supporting you. So it's all full steam ahead. What happens next? What's the next big challenge that lies ahead of you?
The big, what are the risks involved in this project are the things that are our biggest challenge. There's a bit of a misperception, for want of a better word, on the radioactivity involved in the project. I think that's one of the things that's always been there. It's always been well managed. We wouldn't have a certificate of registration from the nuclear regulator if we didn't manage it properly and record and monitor and mitigate everything. So we're very, very strict on that process.
But Graham, sorry, how do the guys actually mine it? Do they go in with radioactive protective clothing?
No, it's not necessary. It's not necessary. It's not that radioactive. To bring it into context, if you fly on a Boeing for 18 hours at 45,000 feet, in that 18 hours, you get more exposure in those 18 hours than what you would get working on the mine under our controlled conditions for over a year. So it's just to bring it into context. There are some messages out there that have stated that it's so radioactive, etc., and we know for a fact that it's under control and we can manage it. And it's relatively easy to manage it so long as you can monitor what's going on, and that's what we do. So that's the one risk. challenge. The second, going forward, is the completion of the concentrate plant. I think what people need to understand as well, this project is very small. Our production size plants are very, very small compared to anything else out there known in South Africa anyway. Our feed to plant will be running at about 15 tons an hour, which is literally a wheelbarrow every couple of minutes. It's not the type of mines we've operated on where you're looking at 1,000 or 2,000 tons an hour through a processing plant. So the risk there, or the challenge there, is to make sure you don't make a mistake. Because if you make a small mistake, you make a very big mistake on your finances, and the whole project comes to a standstill, and we can't afford that. So that's definitely a risk on our side. Going forward, getting the metallurgical plant up and running, the target there is Q3 2026. And then starting the construction simultaneously or halfway down that period on the cracking plant, which is the hydrometallurgical plant to crack the thorium out, and also then starting the refurbishment of the decline shaft and opening up and cleaning up the underground operations that we can go into production by the end of 2026.
I understand all of this. I'm not sure our viewers and listeners would be completely in touch when you talk about decline plants, etc., or decline shafts, etc. But the bottom line of this is that you're looking at the end of next year, you're going to be generating foreign exchange for South Africa. How much? How much might be coming in as a consequence of you reopening the mine?
Oh, that could be a difficult question, because we're working on. You're looking at a project that will probably be producing in the region of 100 million rand upwards very quickly from the end of next year per month. So it's depending on how quickly we get into the hydrometallurgical circuit, then it goes into telephone number territory. But that is further down the line.
And if I understand correctly, the rock that you're taking out is so rich in the minerals that you're looking for that it is a wheelbarrow, as you say, every minute. You don't have to, it's not possible to put bigger chunks onto that plant that you have at the moment.
We can ultimately, if we get investors that want to come in and they want an exclusive stream through the plant, we can add an extra stream into it and give them exclusive supply, but that would take some capital injection from their side. So that will allow us then to step up our production. Our target at this point is to keep the exposure down as little as possible. Because of the grey that you're talking, if you look at the ore, you actually see it looks like it's brown sugar grains. You can actually see the monazite. And the more grains there are, the more rare earths there are. And what we've found is the higher the grade of ore, the higher the thorium content. It's almost a straight line correlation. And so if we go in with a scintillometer and we test the radioactivity and it goes off the charts, we know we've got a very high grade ore there. What it exactly is, we don't know. That will come through tests and analysis. But we've got some parts of the mine where I've got 10-meter thick reef, which becomes a underground mining nightmare, but we can work around it. That runs at 40% contained trio in the run-of-mine raw product. So we record a 14.48 or 14.5% as our lowest grade average, but in actual fact, we've got a much higher grade than that we can mine. So we're sitting in the proverbial gold mine. Is one of the one of the phrases that were coined about 2 years ago was, it's 90 grams per ton of gold equivalent. And that was then. It's not anywhere where it is now. It's way beyond that, because the value of this ore is escalating daily now. It's just skyrocketing at the moment. And expected to go much higher because there's such a short supply of product. Demand is outstripping it.
For context, 90 grams a ton, if we're using it in the gold context, what is a a rich gold mine nowadays, how many grams per ton would they be yielding?
3 to 4 grams per ton.
Yeah, puts it into context, doesn't it? But
Puts it into context.
you did talk about about engaging with Europeans, but what about the Americans and the Chinese? I would also think they're the two who going head to head on the whole rare earths battle. They would be the ones beating a path to your door.
Yeah, we have had discussions with the Chinese, but the transactions and that they did table weren't acceptable. That's now a couple of years ago. They want our product now. If we want to sell to them, we can just push the button tomorrow. We've already, if you like, we're at a point where we are fully subscribed. We've sold all our product that we plan to produce. And that's where we're surprised the Americans haven't come and spoken to us beyond where we've already introduced ourselves to them. So we've spoken to the Department of Defense, which is now the Department of War, which I find very strange. We've spoken to DOE, we've spoken to Exim and those guys, and we haven't had much traction back from them.
I guess the fact that we are seeing geopolitics becoming more turbulent, especially in the Western Hemisphere now, and who knows where it could go from here. But your goods, your products are very much in demand. You clearly have been following Trump's moves around the world, his discussions with Zelensky to try and get the Ukrainian rare earths. What did you make of all that?
I want to call it white noise. We'll see it happen. The big issue there is, once again, the grade of ore that we've got. You want to get it out cheaply and you want to get a consistent supplier, come and talk to us. That's my answer to that. So because we have, in effect, stayed under the radar and just got our act together, we are in a space that we are comfortable with. Talking geopolitically, our chairperson, Dr. Enoch Matabula, who came in just over about 2 years ago, he has made sure that we have got a full BE component, we've got a full technical component, we've got a full funding capability component, we've got staffing. Everything came in through his companies, and he has bought shares in the company and is now our appointed chairperson. So through that aspect, we made sure that we stay within the confines of our geopolitical requirements in South Africa. What others out there think about South Africa, we can have an impact on them, but it's up to them what news they listen to.
Are you getting any pressure from our government, the South African government, to deal with the Chinese?
No.
So they hands off. You can actually pick your partners in any way that you want to.
We've had no pressure from them. They're very keen to see this project going forward. They see that there's traction and things are moving forward, and it's good for the country because of us wanting to do all of the processing here as far as possible down the line. So we're tying into their expectation around beneficiation in South Africa. So that's working well into what we're planning as well.
We have a new US ambassador who lands hopefully soon, depending on when they can get the on-block approvals through Congress. They've had their hearings and so on. Do you know much about him, Brett Bozell, and whether have you tried to get into his diary? Because presumably that would be a nice way into the Trump administration, who have already said that they're so excited about the product that you're producing.
We're not. We haven't connected to. We did go and see the consulate down here in Cape Town. We had discussions with them, and gave them the same story as we've given everybody else, and we just had no traction from that side. So definitely like to make contact with them.
So the people in Cape Town are perhaps looking at the ocean and their eyes are cast differently, not on the mining side right now. In-house, what do you say to the guys who are working with you? Because this is an organization where you've bootstrapped it to a large degree, or they've bootstrapped it. You've been in for 3 years, for over many years now. keeping the faith, buying it out of business rescue. What are you saying to the guys there? How close are you to the finish line?
I think it's an interesting one because initially, when we all got involved, it was a case of we were standing with literally a tin out there, begging for money to come and help us to get this project out of care and maintenance and getting it operational. We then made a decision 2 years ago to take it out of care and maintenance and out of dormancy and make it a mine that we are now taking up into production. And the team that came on board has got that ethos, if you like, and we've remained compliant. We've brought funding in. We've made sure that we've put ourselves in a position where there's an interest shown by investors out there, and that's the way we've taken. What we did do is not rely on the big players out there. We didn't wait for the USA or somebody to come to us and say, yes, okay, yeah, we'll be your big brother. We went to the IDC. We went and showed them what we've got. They were sensitized to it and they liked what they saw. There's another South African financial institution, which I'm not at liberty to mention right now, is also champing at the bit to take this into the South African story. So from that perspective, our whole team thinks on the same wavelength. And we've been successful because of that.
So you presumably would recommend to others, other South African entrepreneurs, to go and talk to the IDC.
Yeah, if your homework is done properly and your house is in order, go talk to them because they are very, very strict.
What's your homework and what's your house in order? Are you talking about BEE getting all those ducks in a row first?
All of that, that's and I'm speaking now on behalf of our side of it. We didn't surround ourselves with window dressing. We, through Dr. Enoch Matabula, we got what it takes. And if you're talking just purely BE, that's one thing. But also making sure your partners that you do partner with are people who actually walk the talk. And if you want to know somebody who walks the talk, is you go and talk to Dr. Enoch Matabula. He walks the talk. And he's made sure that everything that we've had to do from his perspective, not just bringing money in, that's the initial side of it, but putting us in a position where we could go and raise capital and have the right people on board. And that's made a huge difference. So by that's what I mean by that. Make sure you've got the team you've got together can make this happen.
Well, it's good to see that the IDC is supporting the kind of businesses that, as you say, have done their homework. But there's still a lot of naysayers. There's still a lot of cynics. Just this past week, there was a piece in, I think it was an Italian publication that said, no, this is not, you've got no product and you're not going to be able to bring it out and it's too radioactive and so on. Why this? Is this kind of fake news or have they got a point?
No, they don't have a point. I think it's purely because of misconception or misinformation or total lack of information. If we read things like that, then I'll just shake my head and say, well, you're welcome to your opinion, but it's totally off track. And that one of the comments that we had this discussion around this morning is the press out there sometimes becomes very negative towards a project. Is it something around selling a BMW or Mercedes Benz to compare vehicles? In the old days, they used to compare to each other and bad mouthing each other to try and win things over. We're not in that space. We are what we've got. We know what we've got. Believe me, we wouldn't be going this route if we didn't know what we had. I definitely would not be doing it. I've been in the mining game for over 45 years. And this thing piqued my interest, and it's now really at the point where it's going operational.
As a management team, have you guys hocked your houses and done the proverbial kind of big investment and taken big risks yourselves?
Yeah, we have. I've invested my whole life in this project. Moved down from the sunny, warm waters of Belita to here to take the project. Tyron, our CFO, has moved down here. Dr. Matubula is got a house down here as well. And we, if you look at, just getting back to your question about some of the press out there, if you look at the DDs that have been done, the due diligences, the IDC's due diligence is a due diligence from hell, in a sense. They drill down into every single aspect out there. We've had DDs done by the likes of Retech in Norway, who want to become one of our off-takers. They've due diligenced us through everything that we've done. And because of that, we are very confident in what we've got. Not just on the geological side, but on the company side, on the marketing side, on all of those levels. And that takes the project to a very different level.
Graham Soden is the Chief Executive of Steenkampskraal. I'm Alec Hogg from biznews.com.